Steve, we've seen a change in Prime Minister. We're going to see a change in the internet web filter policy.
We've got an election commitment to deliver.
The Greens are saying that it's been shelved, though. So what does?
Look, I don't. Well, you have to make your own judgment. I'm saying to you that we have an election commitment. Just because Scott Ludlam says it's been shelved, doesn't make it true.
Will the legislation make it before the next election?
Depending exactly when the next election is, and I don't actually know.
I guess what you're saying is the legislation.
But I answer his question, and he asked his question, and I answered his questions. We said we'd bring the legislation forward. We'd hope to have finished all of the consultations that have taken place. That's taken a little bit longer than we'd hoped, but we'll be bringing legislation forward in the second half of the year. The timing of the election is something that ultimately the Prime Minister, Julia, will ultimately decide on.
Have you been involved in any negotiations regarding a data retention regime?
No, it's actually Robert Clover's portfolio area.
The reshuffle announced today is fairly minor. Why do you think Julia Gillard has just done a sort of tinkering around the edges today?
I think what's important is for us to present a stable front and to have the minimum number of changes allows the continuity. We've got a whole range of reform areas in the mining sector, obviously tax sector. We've got Nicola's health reforms, our telecommunication reforms, and I could go on and on talking about all of these reform programs. I mean, this is a government that is committed to a whole raft of reforms. So I think I totally support Julia's decision that we need to go forward and keep the momentum in those reforms.
How do you think Kevin feels though being left out of the ministry?
Look, you'd have to ask Kevin.
But would you foresee that he probably will get back in?
Well, I think Julia's indicated that this morning. She said she would welcome that. I think that was in her exact quote, but I think that's what she said this morning.
How have your discussions with Senator Fielding gone over the Telco reform legislation?
He said we've got him a briefing with the Telstra guys, and the NBN guys are trying to line one up, and hopefully now that the negotiations have been heads of agreement has been completed, that he will be now willing to consider supporting the bill. He never said he was opposed to the bill, he always said he wanted to consider it. He needs now to look at the deal. I spoke to him a couple of times last week. He wants to look at the deal, the overall package now with the amendments and make a decision. But any information that we need to provide him with, we're doing our best to organise for him.
Is he going to wait on a definitive deal, or is he going to...
You would have to ask him that. I'm not sure. As I said, we're providing all the information that we can.
Minister, have you spoken to, or do you have any indication from Julia Gillard about how she would consider the sort of opt-out or opt-in amendments to the filter that Senator Lundy is?
We have an election commitment that we will deliver on.
So, how important is it for the Telecommunications Competition and Consumer Safeguards Bill to pass now that you do have a deal secured with Telstra?
No, look, the bill itself, despite it being characterised as just a Telstra bill, was actually a much broader bill about consumer safeguards. So those consumer safeguards are very, very important. And we will continue to try and press this legislation through the Parliament so that Australian consumers can get a better deal. It introduced enormous fines, $10 million for companies that didn't meet their obligations, the consumer service guarantee or the universal service obligations. So we consider this bill as a very important bill. Now obviously we have an agreement with Telstra, that is them agreeing to structurally separate, but there are other things in that piece of legislation that are just as important for Australian consumers. Sorry. Sorry, you were asking a question.
I just wanted to get a feel for what's your personal view of the opt-out and opt-in provisions that could be added to the filter legislation? Are they a possibility or a good idea? Or?
I'm not into opting into child porn.
Are there any further amendments considered by the government?
Sorry?
Are there any further amendments considered by the government for the Telstra bill?
Look, there may be some others just we're working on, but we haven't finalised them at this stage. So at this stage we're just in the early stages of looking at what we need to do now. We've got the agreement with Telstra. We've released the ones that we negotiated with Telstra for the Parliament to look at, and there's a few other issues that we can consider now given we've got the 7-week break.
And just in regards to Mr Quigley's donation, given that NBN Co is still a government-owned company, wouldn't some see that $2 million yearly salary for the first year is a bit high for a government salary?
Look, not at all. Mike Quigley does a fantastic job. He is a world-class engineer. And if you look at what he gets paid compared to the rest of the sector, here in Australia, you'll actually see this is a very modest salary. All of the NBN Co employees are working well below the market rate. They believe in the vision. I think that's probably the best way to describe it. Mike believes in the vision. He turned down, he won't thank me for saying, but he turned down a major telecommunications job overseas to stay and do this job at a substantially reduced salary. So while it sounds like it's a large number, and it is, for the work that Mike has been doing, it is a bargain basement price for a man of his ability, and as you've seen, selflessness and generosity that he brings to the job.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.